a little bit about why do we need measurement. Again, this is more of an applied unit than a pre-cal unit, because applied means you're applying math to the real world, and lots of people build stuff and make stuff in the real world. If you're thinking maybe engineering in your future or architecture, that's the kind of guys that are going to use this. If you're more hands-on, maybe construction, electrical, they're going to use this all the time. So it might not be your thing. You might be more a pre-cal person, and that's great, but education is never a waste. So we're going to look at this imperial system, which is, of course, the way the US does it. We talked a little bit yesterday, well, why do we care what the US does? Well, because we buy lots and lots of stuff from them. And so in 1976, we adopted what we call the metric system, which is called SI, worldly, which actually comes from the French. So it's Système International, that's why it's SI. We call it the metric system. However, everything in the US continues to be in the imperial system. Why? Why did the US not have to change when the rest of the world went metric? Question, Tim? Yeah. So why? Why did the rest of the world follow this metric system? And the US was like, no, no, we like our system. Sorry? No, why? Same thing with Fahrenheit. Right, the rest of the world was like, let's get on the same page and use Celsius. US was like, no, we're going to keep our Fahrenheit. So why do they get to do that? Because they are the richest, most powerful country in the entire world. The big answer is because they don't have to. They don't have to change to everybody else's system because we'll just adapt. If I said, how tall are you? What would you answer? 6 feet, 5'5", I'm 5'3", and a quarter. When you're under 5'5", that quarter matters. Why do we still measure our height in feet when we don't use feet for anything else? What if I said your weight? You don't have to tell me your weight, but think of the number in your head. What unit is it in? Pounds. Why do we still measure in pounds when that's the US system, that's imperial? Because we do. So even though we have metric and everybody else has metric, there's so much in our life that deals with the imperial. That's why we want to give you a little glimpse of how do you convert between the systems. Because at some point you're probably going to need to know what exactly does a foot mean? What exactly does it mean in terms of imperial? So a little bit of history. The metric system actually came from France, which is where it came from. And the reason we went to metric system is because everything is base 10. Right? So you know how many centimeters in a meter, for example. Maybe you don't know how many centimeters are in a meter. 100. Who's taking French? So cent, at the beginning of centimeter, what does it mean in French? 100, that's where it comes from. It's because of the French that developed it. What about millimeters? So if you're taking French, what does mil mean? 1,000, so there's 1,000 millimeters. And we went to this system because it's all by 10, so it made really a lot of sense. Everything's in base 10. The problem with imperial is it's not. Anyone know how many inches is in a foot? Oh, sorry. 12. Well, why 12? I know, why 12? How many feet are in a yard? So football fans. 3. Well, why 3? Why would there be 3 feet in a yard but 12 inches in a foot? How many yards are in a mile? This is when people are like 5,000 something. We'll look at the number exactly in a second, but why that number? Well, it actually was the French that also developed the imperial system. And it was the King of France at the time, who was Louis XII. And of course, kings are powerful, so they get to do whatever they want. So he created a system of measurement based on his body and things that were around him. So I want you to hold up your index finger. And I actually use this all the time when I go shopping, girls. If you need to know roughly what an inch is, the King of France, way back in the 1400s, decided the distance from this first groove in his index finger to the tip of his finger was going to be an inch. And so you guys, because you're not fully grown yet, it's probably actually a little bit smaller. But once you're full grown, that's about what an inch is. So if someone's like 10 inches, it's about 10 of these. If you have your ruler here today with inches, grab it. If you don't, just watch. And I want you to measure index finger from the first groove to the tip and tell me how close it is to an inch. Again, yours might be a little bit smaller because you're not fully grown. But is it close? So look at an inch, tell me this part of your finger. And we're excluding the nail, so if you have nails, long nails, we're not counting that. Okay, is it close? Okay, that's where the French king was like, yeah, that's going to be an inch, a foot. You'd think it was, but most people's feet are not a foot length. Most are smaller. Yeah, it was his arms. He went from the elbow to The wrist. So again, if you have your ruler, measure that. Is that approximately 12 inches? Again, you might be a little bit off because you're not fully grown, but that's what he decided a foot was. Why do you call it a foot? Well, it was something else in French. That's just a translation that came later. But honest God, he was just like, yeah, okay, we're going to call this a unit of measurement because I'm the king and I'm wonderful. A yard. Anyone want to guess? Held out his arms. What is a yard? So it is from his shoulder to the end of his finger. So hold your arm out. That's approximately a yard. And it's kind of nice because in our system it's about a meter, so they're pretty close to each other. So show me again, what is an inch? Where did he get that from? Tip of his index finger. Where did he get foot? Wrist to elbow. And then where did he get yard? Okay. Where did he get mile? Which is so interesting. So we know a mile is quite far. It takes time to walk a mile. That's actually kind of interesting. It kind of came from that. He had a palace, obviously, because he's a king. They live in palaces. And he had a courtyard, which was very common in palaces. And it was the number of steps, so footsteps he had to take to walk around his courtyard. And so he counted off the number of paces. And he decided 5,000 blah, blah, blah. That's going to be a yard. Do you see now why we kind of went to the metric system? Right? It made a whole lot more sense, everyone except the US. Why do we need to know this? Because we interact with the US all the time. We talked TVs yesterday. What's your TV measured in? Inches. If someone said, oh, my TV is 57 centimeters, you're like, I don't know. What is that? Even our own height. How many centimeters are you? 100 something, I don't know. That's why we need to learn this, because it's important in everything we do. So let's look at, again, just the conversions there and what they're called. Smallest unit of measure is called an inch. Abbreviation, there's two. There's a symbol and there's letters. What's the letter abbreviation for inch? IN. Captain Obvious was the French king there. What's the symbol? Yeah, the two quotation marks or the double tick. Sometimes it's called a double prime. What do we use to estimate? So what did I just tell you about the French king? How do you measure an inch? Tip of? Tip of? Index finger. And we don't need to convert because inches is the smallest, so there's nothing smaller to change it into. Okay, he needed a next bigger unit, so after inch he did foot, or feet for the plural. Two-letter abbreviation. FT, again, fairly obvious. The symbol. One apostrophe or a tick, or sometimes it's called a prime. What do we use to estimate? Ooh, forearm. That's very fancy. Okay, or wrist to elbow. And the conversion is 1 foot equals 12 inches. Why? Because that's how long his arm was. After the foot we have yards. Football players know yards? Actually, I don't even know. Canadian football, do we measure in meters or yards? Yards. We measure in, why? See, that blows my mind. Why in Canadian do we? I don't know. I don't even know what the yard lines would be in metric. Two-letter abbreviation. YD. So go for the obvious first and last. There is no symbol. We just use YD. Estimation is? Yep, so arm length, which is shoulder to fingertip. Yes, sir.
Why don't they convert over if it would just be easier for everybody and probably for them?
Because it would cost millions and billions of dollars. It costs us millions to convert over. Because suddenly all their scales are going to need to change. The way they measure everything's going to change. All their signs are going to need to change. And basically, they don't want to have to spend the money. And because they're the richest and most powerful country, they don't have to. right? So they haven't converted. We've changed to be with them, right? We measure in height. We measure lumber because they don't have to. Yay, US. 1 yard is 3 feet. Or if we want to go right to inches, we'll say 1 yard is, well, if 1 foot is 12 inches, 3 feet is going to be 36 inches. Mile is the biggest one. 2-letter abbreviation, MI. In the States, they'll do just M. We typically don't do that because what does M mean to us? Meters. So the States, you'll see M, but we try to do MI. Estimation. So it's a distance walked in about 20 minutes. Average person, average leg length, average walking pace, it's going to take you about 20 minutes to walk a mile. One mile is 1,760 yards. One mile is 5,280 feet. 5,280 feet. And 1 mile is 63,360 inches. 63,360 inches. Go ahead, ask the question. Go ahead, ask. Everyone always asks at this point. Go. Yeah. What's the most obvious question? Do we need to memorize this? No, nobody memorizes this. I don't memorize this. Come grab a card, whatever color suits your fancy. Oh, it's just up there. I already put it up. It was not turn and laugh. It was turn and talk. There's no laughing in math class. I don't have my phone out right now. Remember when we're talking? There's no phone because I put mine over there too. Just check. We don't, no. Yeah. Oh, wait, if you're writing out the whole word? How can you tell them visually? E after the S, yes. If the abbreviation, no. Okay, focus back is what I say when you stop turning and talking and you focus back on what we're doing up here. Again, turn and talk is just for, number one, tactile people actually get to move. Auditory people get to actually talk. E, depth of the ocean, kind of a tricky one, because not what you think it would be. It is feet, which makes no sense because it's huge. But if you scuba dive, they always talk about the number of feet before you need air. It's ridiculous. I know. We always measure it in feet. I know, but that's usually if they're like, no, they still use feet. Yeah, they still use feet. F, circumference of the earth. Miles, because it's huge. Length of my dog's bone. Well, my dogs do not have bones that are this long. They have bones that are about this long. Inches typically, maybe feet if it was really long, but typically we're going to do inches. That's the first skill you need to be able to do. So remember, I'm the coach, you're the player. I've now shown you the first skill of this game. The first skill of this game is to be able to look at a measurement and indicate what kind of imperial measurement you would use. Skill number 2 is actually the conversion, so let's get into the mathy part of this. We're going to convert 7 yards into feet, and then we're going to go all the different ways, inches into feet, everything else. If you are left-brained, here's your method. If this does not work for you and you don't need a method and it's not your thing, don't bother writing it down. If you're a wordy person, you might want to write it down. If you're into symbols, you might want to write it down in a short version. So I'm going to write in words first, and then I'm going to write in a short version if you're not a wordy person. So if you are going from a large unit to a small unit, if you are going from a large unit to a small unit, multiply by the conversion. And if that doesn't mean anything yet, you might need the example for that to make sense. But if you're going from a large unit to a small unit, you're going to multiply by the conversion. For righties, large to small, multiply. Okay, so you might not need all those words. You just might need large to small, multiply. Up to you how you choose to write down the notes. The opposite, if you're going from a small to a large, what do you think you're going to do? Divide. So I'm going to write that in a shortened version. If you want to write out the whole thing, copy above. But short people just might need small, and then an arrow large equals divide. That's more right-brained. If you like the whole sentence, then you write the whole sentence. If you're going from a small unit to a large unit, you're going to divide by the conversion. Do you see how I just said that like 5 different ways? That's what I'm going to do every single day. So if that didn't mean anything to you, you might need the example first. So let's take a look at number 2A. We're going from yards to feet. Is that from a large unit to a smaller unit or a smaller unit to a larger unit? Large to a small, because feet are longer than yards are. And you don't need to write this. I'm just going through in my head what I think about. And if you're going from large to small, is it multiply or is it divide? It's multiply. So that's not something you need to write. This is just a brain process. If you need to write it, then write it. So what do I mean by the conversion? Well, you're either going back to the first sheet of the notes or you're going back to your card that you can pull out right in front of you. And we're looking for something on here that goes from yards to feet. What is the number that connects yards to feet? 3. Yards to feet is 3. So we're going to take the distance, or the number in the question, which is 7, and we're going to multiply because we're going from a larger to a small. 7 times 3? 21. There are 21 feet in 7 yards. What work would you need to show me? 21 would be enough for this question. That would be a 1-mark question. It would get you the full mark. B, we're going yards to inches. Is that long to short, or larger to smaller, or is it big to small, large to big, small to big? What's going on here? It's big to small, or large to smaller, or long to short, or whatever your brain needs to understand. If you're going from big to small, you are going to multiply. So we're going to take 5, and we're going to multiply by the conversion. Conversion is the number on here that is linking yards to inches. So scroll through that list. What's the number linking yards to inches? 36. If you need to grab your calculator, you can grab it at this point. If you don't have, you probably have one on your device. Just please stay on the calculator. Don't text your friends, because I'm not texting to my friends right now. If you can do it in your head, great. Offer of 180. So I never do calculations for you. You'll notice I don't have my calculator out because that's your job. Somebody will offer 180, and I always say 180 with a question, or I'll say confirm, and that means someone else in this room has to confirm. If you confirm wrong, I'm not stopping because that's your guy's job. So you'll see me say a lot like 180, or I'll say confirm. You can't confirm your own number, by the way. So someone else either says thumbs up, yep, confirm, we're good to go, and we move on. Confirm? Good to go. Letter C.
36 inches, that's 3 feet, right?
Yes, except the question we're going yards to inches, so we don't care about feet.
Okay, right.
Inches into feet, 60 inches into feet. Inches to feet, small to long or long to small? Small to long or smaller to larger. So are we dividing or are we multiplying? We're dividing. So we're going to take 60 and we're going to divide by something. Where do we get the something from? The notes or the card. You're looking for what is the number here that is combining inches and feet? 12. Why are we dividing? Because we're going from a small unit to a larger unit, so there has to be less of them because it's longer. Offer? Confirm? The other thing I'm going to do a lot, and you'll probably every day, I'll say, show me your thumb. So show me your thumb is up in the air, thumbs up, I totally get this, I'm good, I could write the test right now. Halfway is, I'm kind of getting it, I probably need some practice, coach, like show me again, this is not going well. And you can have degrees somewhere in there. So when I say show me your thumb, it's got to be high because I can't see when you do this. And if it's up high, no one else is looking at it, so no one looks at your thumb compared to their own. So show me your thumb so far in the converting. I'm getting it, I'm kind of getting it. Good, perfect. D, 7.5 feet into yards. Feet into yards, feet into yards. Small to big, big to small. That's small to bigger. So it's a shorter unit to a longer unit. If we're going short to long, we're going to divide. Well, I probably don't want to put 7.5 into my calculator, so what's another math way I can write that? 7.5. If you want to put the half in, put the half in. It's totally up to you. Now we need the conversion number. Where do we find that? In the notes or on your card that you have, you're looking for the number that's connecting feet to yards. 3. 7.5 divided by 3? Oh, I heard 1.5, 2.5, and 3. I just heard 3 different answers. Fight it out.
1.5.
Let's heard it again. Fight it out.
Oh, 2.5.
I hear now confirmation of 2.5. Good to go. How are we feeling so far? Again, you may be like, she keeps repeating herself. I know that. I'm just doing it different ways. Example number 3. So when it changes examples, what that means is we're changing up the question a little bit. So 3 is going to be a little bit different from 2. Part A is going to ask us to convert 60 inches into feet and inches. That's not 2 separate questions. It's not asking you to convert to feet and then convert to inches. What it's saying is there's going to be some numbers left over. It's not going to be an even amount of feet. So we're going to start with the inches into feet. Is that smaller to longer or big to small? Smaller to longer. So we are going to divide or multiply. Are we sure? Okay, if you're not sure, check back in the method box. Which is longer, inches or feet? Feet. So we are going from a shorter unit to a longer unit. Yes, ma'am. Yes, don't shut the door behind you. So we're going to take 62 and we're going to divide. What number are we going to divide by? Offer of 12. Where does that come from? Okay, so let's divide that out.
5. 0.2.
Confirm. What this question is asking, the reason it says foot in inches is it doesn't want this 0.2. It really wants the whole amount of feet and then how many inches are left over. Just hang on 1 second. Okay? That's what it's telling you. Up here, because it didn't say 2 different units, we were fine with this 0.5. This question is saying, no, we don't want the 0.5. So this is 5 feet, and then we got to figure out how many inches are we not using. Well, if 5 times 12 is 60, how many inches do we still have left? 2. That's what it's asking you. There's converting 62 inches into feet and inches. It's saying no decimal. It's 5 feet, 2 inches. Shorter than I am, yeah. B, we're going to take inches and we're going to put it into yards and feet and inches because it's going to fit into all three of those. So we're going to start by taking it and going into inches. Oops, 62. What connects yards to inches? Offer of 36 from that table or your card. Okay, divide it out, and I'm only interested in the whole numbers. I don't care about the decimal. There should not be a pause here. You should just tell me the answer. 1, and then I don't care about the decimal? So there's 1 whole yard within 62 inches. How many now do I have left? So out of that 62, what have I just used? How many of the inches have I just used? 36. I had 62, I've used 36. Now how many are left? You all have calculators right in front of you. Take this. I heard 36, I heard 24. I heard 24 confirmed. I have 24 left. Where is that number coming from? So now I'm grabbing my red pen. So if you don't see where it's coming from, I'm going to put a little note off to the side. Where did this come from? And what does leftovers mean in math? What operation does that mean? Subtraction. What did we subtract to get the 24? 62 minus 36. So we took how many we started with, subtracted what we already used. Do we want to confirm the 24? There we go. Okay, so we've done the yards check. What do we need to do now? The feet, because the feet come next. So how many feet are we going to divide here? What's our number that connects inches to feet? 12. So I'm going to divide by 12. And again, I only care the whole number. I don't care the decimal. I heard confirmation of 2 feet. Okay, so I started with 26 for this one. How many did I just use for my 2 feet? 24. So how many are left? Where does that 2 come from? Just for the people who didn't see it. Red pen, make a little note off to the side. Where did we get that from? That's 26 minus. And where did 24 come from? 2 times 12. And how do I convert 2 inches into inches? It's just the leftover. It's 2 inches. So what that tells us is 62 inches is 1 yard, 2 feet, 2 inches. This is why we got rid of the imperial system right there, because this is so much work. Questions so far? Example number 4. Word problems. Who hates them? Yep, sometimes I do too. We're going to pause. Actually, I would like, it's going to throw our calendar off, but I would actually like to pause and finish tomorrow, if you're okay with that, because I want to go through the first word problem and tell you exactly how I do it in my head and give you some strategies, and I don't want to rush that for the bell. Will you be okay if our calendar gets off a day? You can survive with that? Okay, so let's pause there. Tomorrow, I want to go through some strategies for word problems with you. We'll finish off 4 and 5, and then we'll work on the homework tomorrow in class.